I am a little more excited about this main event and co-main event. Actually, looks pretty fun. Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates from the Fighting Nerd. Jack Della Maddalena, man, this is gonna be a fun one. But let's do what we do. Is there any preliminary fights you want to talk about here?
Jacob Malkoun versus Gerald Meerschaert. I assume Malkoun's a giant favorite, but that's a fun one. And Justin or Junior Tafa, one of those Tafa guys, is on this card. Of course, it's in Australia. Not deserving to be in the UFC, but he's in there. On the undercard, Tai Tuivasa versus Louie Southerland. Another tough fight for Tai. Hopefully he can get a win because he's on a bad downward streak right now. And then Tim Elliott and Steve Erceg. Very fun flyweight fight. Yeah. But let's get in co-main event here. Probable changing of the guard here. Beneil Dariush versus Quillan Salkilld.
Yeah, Quillan is 11-1, 4 KOs, 4 subs, 3 decisions. He's 4-0 in the UFC, and he's got 3 performance of the night. So
he has my KO of the year last year with that head kick over hack press.
Yeah, he's got and Malarkey too. So he's already getting some good wins on his resume. Obviously impressive. Dariush, I mean, he's got the resume out of the 2 of these guys. Let's not get it twisted here. But like you said, could be a change of the guard. But Dariush 23, 7-1, 5 KOs, 8 subs, 10 decision. But he's only won 1 out of his last 4. Important to note, though, we're talking about Dubronx Charles Oliveira, Armin Sarukian, and Benoit Saint Denis. Those are quality people to lose to. He's got a performance tonight 4 times, fight tonight once. I've been in this game for a while. He's beating some of the best, but he's one of those guys to me that, I don't know, kind of like Ferguson in a sense, always was so close to a title shot, and right there, had great long winning streaks. And then now I think we're seeing him slow down a little bit. And I make no mistake about it. I think that's why this fight is happening. I think Quillan, this is supposed to be kind of like his coming out party a little bit. Will it be? We'll see. But I like momentum. I've said on this program a lot. I like momentum. I'm going to go with Quillan. I think he'll be explosive because Dariush doesn't have a lot of fights that aren't explosive either. Like, he's a guy that likes to push the pace. So that being said, I like Quillan. TKO round 2.
Yeah, I assume Quillan is a large favorite. He's looked world class. Dariush, very good veteran, but I think he's nearing the end of his days here in the UFC. He's 36 years old. So I think that Salkilld gets this done inside the 3 rounds. So I know he loves grappling, but I'm not saying it's impossible for him to sub Dariush, but that is not his easiest path to victory. So I'm going to assume he gets it done with the striking. I'll say round 2 KO for Quillan. Main event. So excited for this fight. Honestly, I think this one's flying under the radar, but Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates.
Carlos Prates. He's 23-7, 18 KOs, 3 subs, 2 decisions. He's 6-1 in the UFC. Lone loss coming to Ian Machado Gary by decision. Said he was 6-1 UFC. He's got performance of the night 6 times. Trevor Giles, Neil Magny, Jeff Neal, Leon Edwards, Lee Jingling. This guy, he's putting in that work right now, and he's definitely someone to watch out for. Jack Della Maddalena, though, this is a guy that was a champ already. 18-3, 12 KOs, 2 subs, 4 decision. Like I mentioned, former UFC welterweight champ, performance of the night 4 times, fight of the night twice. I think JDM, this is going to be a good fight. I think it's close. I think JDM coming off that title loss, he wants to get back in the winner's circle. I think he's a little more technical in his striking, and I think he has great cardio, a little better cardio here. Now, that being said, in saying that, I feel like Carlos is the more dangerous of the 2, the more explosive of the 2. I would not be shocked if Carlos gets a finish or a win here, but I'm going to go with JDM. I think it's going to be a great, fun, explosive fight. I think he's actually predicted a late finish himself. Maybe he plans on putting that pace and the cardio to work here. So I'm going to agree with him if that is what he said. And I think he's going to get a 5th round TKO. I think we're going to go for a while, though. But I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm in line with you here. This is just a super fun fight. I fully realize Prates is very dangerous. Tremendous explosive power. I'm a big Fight Nerds fan, but JDM is just so slick. Might have the best boxing in the UFC. He probably does. And obviously, I expect him to be very motivated after that Islam fight. So, I think he puts it on Prates. He makes it look pretty easy. Feel each other out in the first round or 2. Jack mixes in some takedowns before eventually landing, some slick boxing combo to put him down. TKO, I'll say round 4 for JDM.